So on Thursday's workshop, you guys are going to be learning about trans identity. So it's the Trans 101. And the Get Real movement is great because they have people that identify within these identities, and they speak to students, sharing their own either transitioning stories or coming out stories. Okay? So as you all know, my name is Mr. Zancai. My preferred pronouns are he and him. And some of you I know are part of the school of QSA, so I know a few of you. And for those of you, is anyone's first year here at Bowmore? You guys have all been here before? Perfect, cool. So I thought it'd be a great idea if we had an opportunity just to talk about gender diversity in general. Not specifically just to trans identity and transitioning, but to the complexities and the many pieces that are involved within gender identity. So the first thing I always want to talk about is, what do you guys think is the difference between gender and sex? Very good, yes. So when you're born, right, the doctor looks at you and will tell your parents, congratulations, you have a daughter or a son, so you're male or female. There's also a third option, which is called intersex, meaning you're born with the reproductive organs of both male and female. Now, your gender, what's your name, everyone? I was saying, your gender is how you feel internally about yourself and how you express that gender outwardly. So for me, I identify as male. I prefer masculine he, him pronouns, and I operate and I dress myself like a boy, right? Now, the opposite aspect of that would be female. But now, as we've learned over the last 20 years, is that there's a lot of identities that exist between the male and female identity. Some of those include non-binary, gender fluid, gender queer, non-conforming, or transgender, right? So today we're going to be talking about the complexities that are affiliated with those identities. Now, the first thing I want to do with you guys, we're going to watch a brief video.
All right, folks, here we go. A Roman and kale salad with avocado, cucumber, shishito peppers, and 4 kinds of cheese. Sprinkled in balsamic straight from Italy.
Wow! In my day, salads only had 2 ingredients. A rock-hard wedge of iceberg lettuce and a sticky old dried-up tomato.
Sorry, guys. I'm gonna have to eat fast. Alex is stopping by in a few minutes to work on a robotics project.
Alex? Is that the girl with that weird dog? Or the boy with the hat with the wings that flap?
No, Uncle Jay. This is Alex.
Oh, okay. I remember. A very nice young... come to think of it. Well, is Alex a boy or a girl?
Actually, Alex doesn't define themselves as boy or girl.
What else is there?
Back in your day, most people understood the world in terms of just boys and girls. But now, we know gender is more complex than that.
Wait, aren't we just talking about whether you're born with a or a
When you're born, your sex is assigned in a medical way, but the sex listed on your birth certificate may not necessarily match your gender identity.
Gender identity is a person's inner experience of who they are in terms of gender, their deep personal sense of being male, female, a blend of both, or neither.
And while many people have a gender identity that's the same as their assigned birth sex of female or male, that's not always the case, because gender exists on a spectrum. Like transgender, which means a person whose gender identity is not consistent with their assigned birth sex. Non-binary, which means a person whose identity doesn't fall in the category of either male or female. And genderqueer or gender fluid, which means a person who does not identify themselves as having a specific gender at all.
Does gender identity have to do with being straight or gay?
Actually, no. Gender identity has to do with the way you feel about yourself, while sexual orientation is based on the way you feel toward others, the people you may or may not be attracted to.
You know, I really like Alex, and I can tell they're a good friend to you. But I'm still pretty confused about all of this.
That's okay. You don't have to fully understand someone to respect them. To start, try not to make any assumptions about a person's gender, and use the name and pronouns that they ask you to. Above all, be a friend or ally for for people of all gender identities.
That's right, Mom. Oh, Alex is here. Come on in.
Hey everyone!
Oh, hey, Alex. Care for some salad? The balsamic's right from Italy, you know.
So I love this video for a number of reasons. Primarily because the grandfather, I think, is a great example of how this is a really new conversation, right? People like our parents or grandparents, they may not be as informed about these topics as people like us, who are now having the conversations in grade 7, right? And that's cool, right? Everyone's at a different place in their learning journey with respect to gender and sexuality. And we need to provide information in a safe space in order for people to learn and grow in these conversations. So there are a number of great things that were mentioned in this video. Let's talk about them. What was one good thing that you thought you liked about the video? Yes, very good. And so the grandfather was like, when I was a kid, we only had 2 things in our salad. We had rock hard iceberg lettuce and a tomato, right? So like it's a good analogy that there were only girls and boys, right? And then now he's eating this beautiful salad with all of these different ingredients with like balsamic vinegar in the middle, right? So it's super fancy. What was other thing you liked in the video? And no worries if you don't have anything, I can always add it. Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't like they were sitting the grandfather down again like, how do you not know about this? Right? You're so uninformed, right? I think, and that's a great comment, is that depending on people's learning journeys and the people they meet or maybe where they live geographically, they may not have those opportunities to have the conversations like we do, right? We're very lucky. We live in downtown Toronto, well not downtown, we live in Toronto, and we live in the beaches, right? It's a pretty liberal area of Canada, right? We have an inclusive pride flag that hangs outside of our door, outside of our school. We have openly gay teachers like myself, and we have a queer straight alliance at our school. Not all schools have that. And oftentimes in places that are like smaller towns, you find that that conversation doesn't happen as quickly as it might in a place like Toronto, right? So that's a great point. The other thing I love about the video is to not make assumptions. And that's what we're really here to talk about today when we talk about the complexity of gender, okay? So, who here has ever heard of the term social construct before? Okay, love it. It's all around. Great. Show me hands, have you heard the term social construct more time? Okay, what does it mean? Yeah, yes, it's a weird thing to describe, right? But basically it's a concept or idea that as society that we buy into, okay? So when we're talking about gender, the idea is like, what is a masculine thing, or what is a feminine thing, or what are stereotypes that we often affiliate with girls or boys? Let's unpack that for a second. So when we think about boys, what are some attributes that are commonly associated with boys? Yeah. Shorter hair, great. That's one. Okay, cool. Color blue, yeah, you're wearing it. Sports. No worries. Like, boys don't cry, right? Boys are tough. Yep, very good. What are they? Happy and sad, very good, that's a great point. What else? Yeah, they're messy, right? And what if they are clean? And they are tidy? Then they're like a nerd, or they're a geek, and they're not what's expected of boys, right? Yeah, what's it? Yes, right? They're not taking this seriously. Okay? Now let's flip it. What about girls? What are some common stereotypes or assumptions that we make about women and girls? Yeah. Yes, makeup. Longer hair. Yeah. Yeah, I think yellow sometimes swaps between being a non-binary color or a feminine color. Good. Yeah. Right, you know? And can girls be emotional? Right? It's acceptable for girls to be emotional, right? Yeah, really good. Yes, right? Like, oh, don't push her too hard, she'll break. Yes, childbearing, that's very good. Are these assumptions or ideas about male, female, girl, boy, are they limiting? What I mean by that is, do you find that some people will have a hard time fitting into those boxes of what it means to be a girl or a boy? Heck yeah, right? So for me, I can share my personal story with that because I think this is what I'm trying to get to. So I knew I was gay by the time I was in grade 6. I definitely figured it out by that time. I was trying to navigate it, which was hard for me because I went to a Catholic school. There were no openly gay teachers. We didn't learn about gender identity or sexual diversity in any conversations. And, you know, yeah, I played hockey, I played soccer, I ran cross country, I was athletic, and I went to camp. But, you know, I love Polly Pocket. I love to dance with my girlfriends at recess. I was emotional. You know, I cried easily. You know, I was very affected by other people's emotions. I was, in other words, soft, as people would call me. And for me, it was very hard to fit into this box of what does it mean to be a boy. And for a long time, I struggled with trying to balance personal characteristics and trying to fit into this box that was so small and so narrow that I definitely couldn't do it successfully. I got bullied a lot when I was in elementary school, got called a faggot or gay or queer often, until I started really thinking about how I can change. Because I have to be the one that changes, right? Because I can't change everyone else. No one's talking about gender or sexuality. So I became tougher. I became more masculine. I became that bully on the playground that was calling other people those names. Because if you can't beat them, you gotta join them, right? That's always the common assumption. And it wasn't until I came out of the closet in grade 12 that I realized that there was so much turmoil that took place in my elementary education. It was too late by that point, right? I'd already gone to university, I was moving on. But it really affected me as a person, as a man. And I know that being an elementary school teacher today, that you guys are a much more informed group of students, which is great because that means the generation of tomorrow will hopefully be a little bit more woke. Do you guys know what I mean by when I say the word woke? What does it mean? Wait. What's that? It means like you are awake to the complexities of gender and sexuality. That you are no longer sleeping or ignoring the differences between individuals. That not everyone is going to be heterosexual. Not everyone is going to identify as cisgender. Now, what does cisgender mean? All right. Correct. So, myself, I am cisgender. I was born male at birth. I identify as male. So my gender at birth aligns with my gender expression. Whereas for trans people, it doesn't align. Your assigned sex at birth is not a reflection of your gender expression within society currently. Heteronormativity, what does that mean? I know you know the answer, right? Yeah. Yes, the assumption that everyone, until proven otherwise, will identify as heterosexual, meaning that you are attracted to the opposite sex. So if I'm a boy, I have to be attracted to a girl, and if you're a girl, you're attracted to a boy. This heteronormativity and cisgender expectation on people is very limited. And it creates a lot of internal turmoil on people, a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. And so our goal as allies, or people who are woke, or who are informed, is to dismiss these preconceptions that people should be A or B, that should be heteronormative, or should be heterosexual, or cisgender, pardon me. Are we all on the same page so far? Cool. Any questions? All right. When we talk about gender, it often operates within a binary. What do I mean by binary? Exactly. So binary is often a term that we use in computer science for coding, so zeros and ones. But in social sciences, we apply it within something that has two options. So boy or girl, yes or no, up or down. Historically, gender has always been policed, and when I say policed, meaning like by society, or performed, within this binary. And as we know today, based on our initial conversations, that this is limited, this is problematic. Up until recently at Bowmore, gender was often performed or understood within this binary, boy or girl. It wasn't until about 3 years ago that we started having things like unisex bathrooms, right? Or like non-binary bathrooms. Which is crazy to think about because it's not like we just started having either trans students or non-binary students in the last 3 years. They've always existed, right? It's not like these babies were just born like 10 years ago, right? It's just that society is now starting to become a little bit more woke and realizing how limiting this is for people. So what we advocate for are alternative systems that see gender as a spectrum. That even within the identities of male and female, there is so much variety and option to exist. And it's not that you're either male, female, or trans, it's that it's literally whatever you want to be. Whatever you want to call yourself. Whether it's gender queer, gender fluid, gender unicorn, non-binary, you want to use gender neutral pronouns. You do you. And that's cool. But for those of us who do identify as heterosexual and cisgender, our job is to remain awake, to stay woke, to keep becoming more and more informed. And don't rely on your only gay friend or your only trans friend to teach you everything, because it's not their job. It's your job to seek this information out on your own. Does that make sense? Meaning, like, if you have someone in your life that you meet either now or later on that's trans, non-binary, gay, lesbian, trans, bisexual, they are not your how-to guide on how to be an ally or to answer all of your unanswered questions about gender and sexuality. It's your job to seek this information out on your own. So for example, like joining the QSA, right? That's a great way for you to become more woke, right? A little plug there. Okay, so who here has ever watched RuPaul's Drag Race? A few of us. Okay, cool. So RuPaul has a very famous saying that we are all born naked and that the rest is drag. Meaning that yes, there's like in a song that she sings. Yeah, I'll bring you up to it. I'll wake you up on that one. Essentially what RuPaul is saying, and what it aligns with a lot of gender theorists are saying about gender identity, is that gender can be seen like a stage where we all have our own acting role. And when we present ourselves on that stage, we make conscious decisions of how we want to create our own stage costume. So meaning, like right now, I am on a stage in front of you. You are all on a stage in front of your other friends. And the clothes you're wearing, the way you cut your hair, whether or not you painted your fingernails, the style of shoes you wear, how you stand, the tone of your voice, how deep it is, the pitch of it, how you hold yourself. It's all mannerisms and elements that play into your costume of your gender identity. So in a sense, we're all doing drag, in a way. But you're often doing drag that identifies with the gender that you're assigned at birth. Does that make sense? That like we're all kind of playing a part here. It's like when I go to a clothing store, which hasn't happened in over a year, but when I shop online currently because of COVID, I'm making a conscious decision based on my own personal preferences of what I want to put on my body. You know, for me personally, I like earth tones, like browns and greens, darker colors. And I know deep down inside it's because I want to be read as male. I like being identified as a male. I like having short hair. I don't think that long hair looks good on me. I don't want to paint my fingernails because I just don't want to, right? It doesn't make me any less gay or any more gay, but in terms of my identity, this is what I feel comfortable in. Does that make sense? Crystal, awesome. Okay, we're going to watch another video. Now this video was done by a team of researchers that interview a set of teenagers over this series of 5 years. And they asked these kids what gender identity means to them. And the video is just a collection of videos over the period of 5 years during the different interviews.
So, there's a problem with your phone, internet, or TV service provider, and you have no idea.
I play with girl toys and boy toys. I don't really care which one is meant for boys or for girls. I just play with them. They're toys.
I think gender identity is not what you're born with, but what you are. Like, who you choose to be. 5 years ago, I think I was like very insecure. I was just like really small for my age and like really closeted. I don't think of people any differently just because like they're LGBTQ. You shouldn't think of people differently just because of who they decide that they like.
It doesn't matter what they think. It just matters what like I think and how I imagine myself. For you to be yourself, because if you're not yourself, then you are. Girls are more popular, right now.
Yeah, I think I'm a feminist.
Will you describe the person in this photo?
He's running with really strong arms.
Now, how would you describe this person?
She looks like really confident.
What would happen if I told you that they're the same person?
They are.
How could a boy turn into a girl? That's impossible.
What if this were happening to me? What if I was the one who was going through this?
Who she wants to be is who she should be.
There's this sort of thing which happens a lot where you're sort of like presumed straight until otherwise proven.
You can't just say like, oh, I like to wear heels, so I define myself as a woman, or I don't cry, so I define myself as a man. It's so much more than that.
I don't really feel like the opposite gender that I am. I feel like I am a boy. But that's just me. Manly means to not cry, not be a sissy.
I identify as male, and the pronouns I prefer are he, him.
Right now, I think I identify as male. I'm still kind of figuring it out yet, but right now I use he, him pronouns.
I like drawing and I like birds and flowers.
Gender neutral, and I use they, them pronouns.
What do you do if you're agender and you're going to the bathroom? Which one would you go to? Just whichever one has a shorter line.
Probably coming to the end of last school year, I went into discovering my own gender. As of probably like this summer, I feel like a lot more confident. Just kind of like felt really weird about myself and felt like I didn't look like a lot of people I knew, like dressed like a lot of people I knew. I have some pretty specific memories of like questioning my gender when I was younger. I remember I was like hanging out with my brother and his friends, and then I left and I was alone, and I was like, well, maybe I'm a boy. And like, and I suppressed that because I was like, no, like that's not happening. Later, I sort of decided like, well, I'm not a boy, but I'm also not a girl. That was a really important step for me to take because I had been suppressing feelings of like queer gender identity for a really long time. And then I changed my name to fit my gender, and I think I feel more like connected with my name because I really didn't feel connected with my own name. My friends especially immediately started using the right pronouns and correcting themselves if they used the wrong ones, as well as like using the right name as soon as I told them that that's the name I was comfortable with.
I think that it's more nerve-wracking than not your parents because with friends, it's your own generation, and I think that everyone understands you a little bit more and understands that there's no right? So like an older generation would. My grandmother, I just had to explain to her what bisexual was, like literally 2 months ago, and her reaction was like, oh, they must be something weird.
Maybe they're just like a little overwhelmed and they're like, oh my gosh, this person is taking such a big step in life and they don't understand what it feels like to just be who you want to be.
I think it'll always be easier for someone the same age as the person to relate to them because their parents grew up in a different generation, and this will pretty much always happen, like with our generation's kids and on, is there will be these new things that the parents can't as easily understand.
I have one friend who said that their mom wouldn't call them by their name that they had decided not to be called, or they're not, but refer to them as their pronouns, which I think was really hard for them to do.
I have one friend who is still kind of in the closet because her parents are homophobic. I have a lot of friends who are like, yeah, no, if I was ever part of the LGBTQ community, I wouldn't come out because my parents say generally like obnoxious and weird comments. LGBT, ABC, PFG, there's way too many letters. I can't even keep up with them anymore. It just makes it a hard environment for kids to come out in.
I think they're just scared of change, and I think they just want everything to stay the same because they just don't know how to handle it.
A lot of times parents don't really understand what their child is going through, and they have to explain it what their child is because they're this person who you've been bringing up and you know them and they tell you something which you just didn't know and like understand that for them. I guess it can be hard to kind of comprehend what's actually going through their head.
I think that originally a sexual orientation was literally you were attracted to someone who is sexually male, but what about now where you have someone who might be sexually male but they identify as woman? What does that mean?
I definitely think that the ideas behind sexual orientation have changed in the last 5 years. I think that people are a little more accepting of like the different ideas that a person has. I think it's more open than it used to be. There's kind of like options that you're either this or this or this. I feel like now people are more accepting of like being you and being who you are rather than fitting into these certain like placements of who people think you should be.
With our generation, there's a lot more fluidity, and I think sometimes parents want like a clear, definite answer to stuff, and sometimes you're just not going to get that.
Okay guys, I know you have lunch now, so you have to end the presentation, but overall, so I just want to make a few things before I leave, a few important announcements, okay? Never make an assumption about someone's gender, okay? So if you ever are meeting someone, please just ask them, what are your preferred pronouns? Okay, so just like I started off the presentation, my preferred pronouns are he and him, okay? please never ask someone, what is your sexual preference? Okay? It's a very personal question. Okay? It's something that should only be shared by that person if they feel like it's the right moment or they feel comfortable. It isn't something that you should be inquiring about. Okay? It's very basic. Okay? Now you guys seem pretty informed, and I think you've been a great class. Just continue being great allies, and if you ever have a question about anything related to what we talked about today in terms of gender identity or sexual identity, you can come and talk to me or Mr. Ross. Okay? We're here to have those conversations. No question is a stupid question. Okay? But sometimes maybe the wording that we're using or the choice of words we're using are inappropriate. And that's where I can help you navigate that. Okay? So, anyways, have a great lunch. Thank you for listening. And enjoy the presentation on the Thursday, okay?